Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of When Can You Start? I'm Chris.
And I'm Leah, and we're your hosts for this brand new podcast where we talk to people about how they got started in their careers, what inspired them, and all the steps and missteps along the way.
Each episode will sit down with guests from all kinds of backgrounds, creatives, professionals, entrepreneurs, people still figuring it out, and ask them about their first job. What influenced them? What are they doing now? What drives them? And what advice they might give to someone just starting out or thinking about a change.
We wanted to create space for real conversations, the kind that remind you that no one has it all figured out, and success doesn't look the same for everyone else.
So whether you're early in your career thinking about switching gears or just love hearing how people got where they are, we're glad that you're here.
So let's kick things off. This is When Can You Start? And this is where it all starts. So before we get interviewing our amazing guests, we thought it only made sense to start with us. Who we are, where we started, and where we're hoping to go. Chris, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I started my career not actually in the media industry, which is funny because I do media stuff right now, but I actually started in plumbing. My neighbor owned a plumbing company that serviced all of New England in that area, and I was kind of working in the prefabrication shop. So I was dealing with like cutting the pipe and fusing it together and driving it into the city and everything. And so really just not at all what I do now, but it was nice. It was cool.
So when you were doing that, how many pieces of pipe work would you create a day, would you say? On average.
I mean, we're talking hundreds, we're talking thousands. I would build, I wasn't actually going into people's houses and like actually putting the toilets in, but I would build showers and they would be installed in, like, if they're building an apartment complex, they would put them all on the walls. So we're dealing with like 500 for that one building alone.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's just one job. So they had jobs all over the state of Massachusetts. They had jobs sometimes in Rhode Island. They had jobs in Connecticut sometimes.
And what was the average job that you would be building these pipes for? Was it showers or bathtubs or toilets, anything?
Showers, a lot of pipes that would go in the ceiling. So not pipes that would really be used for your shower. We would build the showers, of course, but we wouldn't do like the little pipes that would go in the wall. Those big pipe we were dealing with, so that's 1/2-inch pipe. We were dealing with 3/4-inch pipe. Everyone's listening is like, why are we talking about that sizes of pipes? But those pipes are really more for, they would blow your grandma out of the shower if she used it, unfortunately.
Oh no. Well, let's see. You had a pretty big change in what you were doing from first job to second job. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How did you get into it? What inspired you? Because it's quite interesting, I have to say.
So I went to Ithaca College, and while I was there, I was working on the broadcast stations that were there, the TV stations that were there, and I loved it. I thought it was so fun. I was actually a psych major at first, but I loved the TV stuff so much that I wanted to give it a shot, and so I switched my major into TVR at the time, which I think it's now, digital media?
In television,
whatever.
Something like that.
Something like that, but it's still TV production. And I really wanted to do that, and so when I graduated, I was trying to find work in Boston and New York, but there just wasn't anything there. So I drove out to LA, and I actually got my first job at NFL, part-time with the NFL. Which I had no idea that was going to happen. I was a really big football fan, so it was a really big, nice, awesome thing that happened.
That's so life-changing, I feel like, to work for a company where you grew up watching the game or you're a huge fan of the sport. I mean, you are a massive, massive Patriots fan, so shout out to all the Patriots fans listening.
For everyone who's wondering how she knows that, so we're friends.
Yeah, we went to college together. We actually did study the same major as well. I did not start off in psych, but I'll tell a little bit about myself later on.
Oh, and so I actually also just started a new job a week ago, working as a production assistant for TMZ.
Ooh, okay, so that's somewhat of a new change as well. You still are staying in the broadcast realm, but from NFL to TMZ, what is the differences that you were doing? What's the different work style in there? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
It's interesting that you say that because both jobs are production assistant, but production assistant at NFL means I'm watching highlight tapes, I'm cutting tapes, I'm sending them to editors. I'm producing actual highlight reels when it's a game day. So I'm actually getting my hands dirty. They have me teleprompt. They have me run a bunch of stuff. TMZ production assistant's a little different. They're more like, hey, the coffee's out. You got to go refill it. Or the chips are out. You got to go refill it. Or, hey, can you do the mail run? Or can you do this? Can you do that? But I'm putting my head down and I'm grinding it there because eventually, and we'll get into it, but eventually TMZ hopefully will lead me to where I want to go in the future.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in a little bit.
Very nice. So I have to ask, who or what inspired you to work there? What drove you towards that company? What do you really love about the company, both in NFL and TMZ?
I don't know if anyone really inspired me to do that. I kind of always wanted to do that as a kid. I would watch TV and I guess I'm a lazy person, and I used to look at the people on TV on Sunday nights be like, man, I really wish I was them right now because they don't have to do homework. And I didn't want to do my homework. And so it's funny that eventually I kind of just fell into that. I didn't fall into that. I guess I know I drove myself there.
Yeah.
But to me, it feels like I kind of just fell into it. And now I'm working in NFL and I'm actually doing exactly what I wanted to do as a little kid, which is insane. I really like how NFL is hands-on. I really like how they let you get your hands dirty. You can actually produce real work, and your work shows up on TV. You're asked to really produce some high-quality stuff there, and I like that. And TMZ, I really like how, as what everyone's saying so far, they're saying it's a place that you can really move up. If you want to work in sports, you can talk to the guy in sports and they're going to shadow you in sports, and if you want to work in live you can shadow the guy in live. And really that's a Fox thing. I heard that a lot of places in Fox will do that, and I see that as, hey, this is a really good opportunity for me to get in there, get my hands dirty, show that I can handle the cooking and the cleaning, and I can really shadow some people that work there and get my experience there and grow my career there.
So when you're working at the NFL, do you just work on games, or do you also work during the draft or the combine or the All-Star game, which is personally one of my favorites, even more so than the Super Bowl? But I gotta say, those commercials are always iconic.
The Pro Bowl?
The Pro Bowl. I'm so sorry. I'm good.
Yeah, we work during it all. So we see it all. We're working there is a dead period in the summertime between May and maybe the end of July, but after that we're working training camp, we're working preseason, we're working the season, we're working the combine, the draft, the free agency. Really the beginning of the off season is crazy, but yeah, we're seeing it all.
And what's your favorite out of all the stuff that they do that you like to work on?
I love the hecticness of the regular season.
You like the
I love how I always compare the bay that we work in on Sundays is like Wolf of Wall Street. Like, it's, not yelling, but there's a lot of people running around, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of life in that room. I work during the week, I work Good Morning Football, and that's a dead kind of early morning shift, 2 a.m. to whatever a.m. Yeah, it's overnight grueling shift, but no one's there. Shift, not the swear, I didn't say that, I don't know if it picked up on the mic, but it's a grueling shift, and it's just really nice to have some life in that room when it's a Sunday.
And TMZ, I don't know how long you've been working there per se, but what is something, there are many departments, I'm sure. There is news with celebrities, news in sports, podcasting, TMZ Live. I mean, do you know or have a rough idea about what department you'd ideally like to work in?
I know I really want to work in TMZ Live. That's the broadcast show that they have. I know I want to do that. I know I had a feeling I want to do sports. I kind of know the guy that does sports. I'm familiar with the producer that runs that department. And it's funny, my first couple of days that I was finding stories to try to send to them, like half of them were sports stories. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I should go to sports. Yeah.
Well, listen, anything is possible. Like we had mentioned earlier, you're never stuck in one career, one place. So explore. I'm sure it's very fun to be working with all those people, and I'm sure it's easier to kind of learn all the different departments and gain experience.
So Leah, you work in media right now, but you also had an indirect path, kind of like me. So what you're doing today. What was your first job?
So my first job, I was working in retail at Loft, and I really love fashion. I love hair, makeup. I love anything creative. So I thought, oh, it would be a perfect first job to work in retail, understand what it's like working with people, understanding just what a first serious job I would say is. And it definitely taught me as well how to work with different people, different personalities, different departments even. So I feel like I learned some good things there, but it wasn't what I ended up doing in the end.
I think that's a really important kind of theme though for what this podcast is sort of it's not always going to be a clear path, and it's okay that your first job is not always what you end up doing. But I think it's important to mention that our first jobs do kind of have a purpose, and they teach us things about life that we carry with us. Are there any things that Loft taught you that you still carry with you today in your job in media?
I mean, I think the biggest thing working in media is I am a post-production assistant, so I work with a lot of different groups and a lot of different vendors. And I feel like the one thing that I mentioned earlier that carried over is working with different teams, different people, different departments. So I have to say I am very thankful for that.
Awesome. That's a really cool perspective to have. That's really awesome that you carry that with you.
Thank you.
Where did you go to college?
I actually went to the same college that you went to. I went to Ithaca College.
What? Oh, yeah, you did. That's right.
I actually started out in physical education, so definitely not in media. And then after that, I went undecided. After that, I went to cinema and photography. And after that, I actually had a couple friends, and I think you did this too, worked on the Ithaca College TV station.
I did.
And from there, I think that really just grew my love into production, ideally being behind the camera, which is hence why this podcast. But overall, I gotta say, go Bombers.
That's a lot of changing of things. It sounds like you went from physical therapy to undecided to cinema photography to TVR. I mean, that's a lot of changing. That's a lot of that's a lot of drive. Is there someone or something that inspired you to take the path that you're doing now?
I think what inspired me was the lack of representation in AAPI. Seeing Jackie Chan, seeing Tai Ma, seeing Michelle Yao, I mean, those are all people that have really just risen and have brought great positive light to AAPI culture.
That's definitely a great mission to have. I definitely see that there's not a lot of that representation, so I'm rooting for you to keep it going. And
thank you.
First step is a podcast. Next step is Oscars, maybe something.
Maybe.
What do you do now?
So right now I am actually working on this podcast. I've been unemployed for a little bit, so I am just currently taking the time for this, for continuously learning new things. I'm learning how to sew. I'm learning how to crochet even. I'm learning how to continue to express my education or continuing to express my knowledge in podcasting. So really taking the time to self-discover as well.
What have you done since you've been out in LA?
Well, since coming out to LA, the first gig that I had was working for the CW network on an AAPI show called Kung Fu. And on that show, I worked for Greg Berlanti. So that was for Warner Brothers Discovery as well. And I was a post PA, so I was doing a lot of helping gather any notes that were there, or working with different departments, re-recording temporary ADR, which, for those people who don't know what ADR, it's basically when an actor records their line on set and it doesn't quite get picked up by the mic. They then have to come back into the studio and they have to match literally everything that, every expression, every grunt, every whatever it may be, and put it back into the episode. So after doing that, I was so fortunate to get a second gig right away working on the Brilliant Minds pilot. And that was very interesting because pilot life is extremely different from season series life. This was long hours, at least 11-hour days, but
that's a long day.
Yeah, it was very long, but it really taught me just how much dedication people have to this career. It taught me every showrunner, every producer, every editor, and every team operates differently. So I thought this was a great new experience to have under my belt. And then just recently-ish, last year in 2024 or 24, I had worked on this Ridley Scott Dope Thief series.
24, yeah.
Yeah. So that was really exciting, working for Mr. Scott, working with a new team. Again, that was very different, but I felt like learning a new studio and learning a new network had been very beneficial. So now I know how to work with NBC, Warner Brothers, CW, Apple, and hopefully I can continue to work for more incredible, great companies.
That's insane. So you've touched pretty much a lot of the major studios in Hollywood. You've had your work made. You're getting out there. Like that's really crazy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. What do you want to do in the end?
I mean, I think in the end, I know I want to be my own boss, and whether that's, still being a producer, which is creative, so that is a possibility, but I feel like in the end, I would love to be my own boss, maybe having my own fashion brand, maybe helping out with adoption in some sort of way, because I actually am adopted myself.
Interesting.
So I'm part Chinese and part Korean. So something within that realm I think would be really, really interesting, and we'll have to see. And I think the last thing at the very end, I would love to have my own dog sanctuary and have rescues and everything like that.
So your dreams are just all over the place.
My dreams are all over.
I'm
all over the place.
You're ambitious. You're just dreaming big.
Yes.
I love that.
Dream big or go home.
I love that. Exactly. I mean, that's what this is all about. Like, you're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to do what you want to do. You're supposed to be creative. You're a very creative person. That's why you're making this podcast. And I think you're going to be fantastic, and I'm sure you have a lot of knowledge in what you're doing, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that either if they're in this industry or if they're not in this industry, but they're definitely starting out in their same position where you are, where you graduated college, and they're just kind of getting out in the force. Do you have any advice for people out there?
I think if you work, whatever industry you work in, I think the biggest thing is really trying your hardest not to compare yourself to people. It is definitely a challenge for me. Sometimes your boss may be older than you. Sometimes your boss may be younger than you. So, you just have to take everything in stride. You have to be confident about your work. If you can enjoy your work as well, that's always a plus, a positive. But I think all of that is very, very important. And also, again, like I had mentioned earlier, just to keep learning, nothing is ever set in stone. I mean, I have friends and even family members where they studied law, went to very good school, studied law, and then they switched to something else. So no path is completely direct out of college. Everyone is always trying new things, and that's what your 20s, and even part of your 30s is about discovering and finding what do you love, what are you passionate about. So I can literally hear my mom and my dad saying that. What do you love? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have very similar advice that my dad kind of gave me very similar advice.
What did he say?
My dad was telling me that when you're in your 20s and when you're in your 30s, it's very hard for you to make a life decision that completely messes up or derails your life unless you get arrested or you have a kid. There's not a lot of things that you can do that can really mess up your life or debt.
For sure.
Or take on a ton of debt. You can experiment your career. If you lose your job, you haven't been working enough to really lose, you're fine. You're going to find another job. If you lose all your money, you have enough time to make it all back. Like, you don't have a kid to support. You don't, unless you do, but that's, these are for the people that don't have a kid and they're just kind of getting out there. But there's not a lot of things that you can do in your life right now when you're experimenting career-wise is what I mean, that are really going to mess up what you're doing. So just, do what you want to do, learn. If you haven't done it yet and you don't have any experience, create your own experience. Yeah. Like, do your own things. Advice. And just do it. Manifest it and do it. Here I am. I was sitting at home like 10 years ago looking at the people on TV going, I would really love to do that. Yeah. And I went to school and I did a little bit of that in school, and then I made 2 podcasts, and then here I am doing it. Yeah. It does not take much. It really does not take much. So crazy to think really about where you start and where you've come, and
I think, again, it's really important when you enter your job, whatever it may be, and discovering yourself. Really try not to compare and keep learning and just enjoy it. You're going to get to a job, you're going to get to a place where you love it. At first, you might have a job that you don't like, but you will end up eventually where you want to go, where you want to be. So, vision boards are great as well. I made one back in 2022. I think it had Blackpink in it, and literally the following year I saw Blackpink, and I never thought that would happen.
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
You never know. A lot can happen in a day.
Exactly. So, that's my overall advice, and I think you had some great advice. I think our parents also have some great advice. Thank you to our parents for that. Well, folks, that's a wrap on our first episode, When Can You Start?
Yeah, it was really fun to kind of go down memory lane and think about all the jobs that we did and learn a little bit about each other, and you guys get to learn a little bit about us, but I'm really excited for what this podcast is going to be, and I think we got some really cool guests coming up.
Yes, I think we have some great guests coming up. I'd also like to give a big shout out to our stellar intern, Caroline, for her assistance on this podcast.
Yeah, and if you guys want to be featured on When Can You Start, feel free to email us at whencanyoustartpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story. We would love to hear how you got your start.
Or give us a follow on Instagram at When Can You Start Podcast, and feel free to send us a DM there. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you guys soon.